Okay, good. I want to welcome all of you to our teaching of pronunciation interest group. I am Marcia Chan, and I'd like to introduce my coordinator, Patrick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And participants, if you won't mind tickling your fingers and the keyboards to introduce yourselves. Perhaps you would like to share your name and location, where you are, what level or levels of learners do you teach? Are there Japanese speakers among your students? And if this is your first time attending a topic webinar, enter first timer. We'd like to welcome all returning members and guests, as well as first time members and guests to our program. Some of you already know this, but just as a reminder, and also as something to introduce to newcomers, we have a couple of ways that we communicate with our teachers of pronunciation. One of them is, of course, through our TESOL top@TESOL.org, which is our message board. This is for all members of TESOL. So whether you are a member of TESOL overall or a member of TESOL and the topic group, you will be able to communicate with us by addressing any email to this address. Also, we have a Facebook group, which you can use if you are a Facebook member, and you can see us in our Facebook teaching a pronunciation group. We also have our top Padlet, which shows you some of our recorded professional development webinars from the past, including some presentations, and some of them have, many of them have video links directly there, as well as some with slide presentations. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to our TESOL YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/@TESOL_YouTube for recordings, not only from topic, but also from many other interest groups and chapters and levels and general TESOL videos. Today's presentation is enhancing English pronunciation for Japanese learners. And before I let our speaker actually come on, I wanted to show you that we were together recently. One of the times was in September in Ames, Iowa for the PSLLT conference. That's pronunciation.
Second language learning and
Thank
teaching.
you. Second language learning and teaching. So this is a conference for pronunciation geeks for any language that's used as an additional language. So we were there. Both Patrick and I were at this conference, and of course we saw Katsuya there at that conference. I had a lively time with Katsuya. Terry, my husband, and I went to Tokyo on vacation, and we had a lovely time on the subway at Team Lab Planets and a lot of other really interesting places in Tokyo. So that is our presenter. So we know we can do both academic things and non-academic things. Now I'd like to send it over to let our presenter take control of the speaking and the presentation of whatever slides you have.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marcia, for the great introduction. I'm very happy to be here to share my experience in teaching pronunciation to Japanese learners. Let me share my screen.
There we go. That looks nice.
I think it looks perfect. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So the title is Enhancing English Pronunciation for Japanese Learners. What I introduced today is related to a college and adult students. So I just wanted to ask these questions, but Masha did it, so I just skipped this part. So what do you think of Japanese learners' pronunciation so far? What's your reaction about their pronunciation? Okay, so do you think their pronunciation is great? Or do you think it's okay? Their pronunciation is okay, or their pronunciation is terrible. So what's your reaction would be? Um, yeah, you don't have to react or anything, but you just think about it. I know if you think it's terrible, I understand that. Many of my students actually have a very serious problem with the pronunciation. That's why I'm trying to help them, and they struggle. Thank you, thank you. They struggle a lot actually with pronouncing some particular sounds. So I'm here to help your students to improve their pronunciation today. So today we are going to go over these three things mainly. So we are going to talk about why Japanese learners speak English with different segmentals or wrong segmentals. If you are not familiar with the term segmentals, I'm going to go over a little bit later. So don't worry at the moment. And the second one is why Japanese learners speak English with awkward rhythms. That is kind of the serious issues. And also why Japanese people speak English with machine-like intonation. They speak English like a machine, right? So, so we are going to go over why those are the difficulties and challenges that Japanese people have, and also how to help those people to overcome those challenges today. So let's first go into the first one. So why do they have a different segmentals when they speak English? When you look at this list, it's a lot actually. It's taken from Nielsen 2003. It lists all the pronunciation contrast and vowel contrasts here. So for example, if you look at number one here, it's the contrast between beat, eat, e as in beat, and bit, e as in bit. So number one is a contrast. So you can see a 32 list of vowel contrasts here. So among those 32 vowel contrasts, which are challenging for Japanese learners, can you take guess and can you type what your guesses are? You don't have to have a complete list of challenges, but can you just guess one or two and then type it in? Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, yes. Yes. Let's wait for a couple more. Yes, yes. All right, that's enough. So if you think, I know it's quite hard, and the symbols are not IPA, so it's kind of confusing. But Nelson used those symbols instead. So if you look at the comparison between Japanese vowels and English vowels based on Nelson's analysis, those 17 pairs are difficult for Japanese learners to pronounce. Okay. There are a lot, right? So only to cover vowels, and we have to teach the 17 pairs. 17 pairs is a lot, right? Let's say spend one lesson for one pair. We have to spend 17 hours of lessons to, teach those 17 different pairs of vowels, only vowels. We can't get into other sounds. And when you look at consonants, it's more complicated, right? Yeah, there are a lot of things here. There are 42 list of pairs here. You don't have to guess again. Those 16, so 38% of the pairs here listed here. 16 pairs of consonants are difficult for Japanese learners to pronounce. Those are true. It's based on the contrastive analysis, just based on the difference between Japanese and English, but still they are very difficult. And let's look at vowels more closely. So this is a complete list of vowels based on the IPA site. So this list includes more vowels than English and Japanese vowels. So let's eliminate those and focus on the Japanese vowels. So Japanese learners, as you may already know, Japanese learners use 5 vowels because the Japanese language has 5 vowels: I, E, A, O, and U. Okay. So those five vowels are easy for Japanese people. But this one is quite different from Japanese. It's not rounded. It's sounds. It's not rounded sounds. So when they produce wood in English, they have to learn to round their lips a little bit. That's the difference between Japanese wu and English wu. And the other 4 overlap, so they can actually produce those vowels. But still, it's not easy because English has a lot more. So you can easily imagine how difficult it is for Japanese learners to learn new vowels that do not exist in their language, in my language. So it's very difficult to pronounce A sounds or A sounds or A sounds or sounds or U sounds or schwa sounds. Okay, it's very difficult. So when you look at the list of vowels here, they have to learn new vowels, very, very new and never experienced before. So they have to learn from scratch. It's very, very confusing. And when you look at consonants, the complete consonant charts are so confusing. So I just took it from Ron Thompson's website, English Accent Coach. Those are the English consonants. And out of those consonants, Japanese language does not have those 9 consonants. So those are new to Japanese learners. So look at those 9 new consonants they have to learn when they learn new language, English. So as they learn English, they are exposed to those 9 new consonants. It's very overwhelming. And the teacher said it's a T sound. It's different from S. It's very confusing for Japanese people because they do not hear those sounds. Okay. And as you saw on the list, there are overwhelming list of consonants and vowels. It's almost impossible to teach them all. I feel that way, at least. And you don't have to teach it, all of them. So you can focus on some pronunciation, actually. The basic decision making is recurring errors, right? When your students make the same mistake again and again, and you just focus on those recurring errors. That's reasonable. As a teacher, we want to focus on those errors that the students make mistakes repeatedly. That's what we do, actually. And when it comes to pronunciation, we can make more informed decisions, actually. which is called like intelligibility-based decisions. Maybe as a teacher, you can have your own intelligibility judgment. You can decide whether the students' pronunciations are intelligible or not. If you don't know what intelligibility means, and intelligibility means the actual understanding of the spoken language. So whether you understand what the learner says or not is intelligibility. There's a similar term, comprehensibility, that refers to how easy or difficult to understand the spoken language, but it's very similar. But intelligibility-based decisions is no matter how difficult it is, whether you understand the learner's speech is important aspect. So based on Lewis and other researchers also, the intelligibility-based decisions should be made when we decide which pronunciation features to teach. And when you do that, actually functional load principle can work. Brown and Monroe-Doreen actually revisited functional load principle in 2006, and found that the high functional load vowels for Japanese people, A versus A, E versus A, and versus excuse me, and high functional consonants, versus O, B versus V, or S versus Sh. Those high functional load pairs should be prioritized. And look at those lists. Still, there are a lot of pairs, and Suzukida and Saito actually found that there is more priority that we can make. So we should focus on consonants, high functional load consonants first, and then move on to high functional load vowels. So those are the priorities that we can take. So if you are considering which sounds, which consonants and vowels we teach first and second, you might want to look at this list, and this is helpful. And you can focus on L&R first. Of course, this is very crucial. It has a lot of impact on the communication when the learners messed up with the L&R. So we want to focus on that too. And the second one is B and V. This is also has a huge impact on communication. So how do we do that? Japanese learners prefers explicit instruction. They don't want to learn pronunciation just by hearing or verbal explanation. You want to explain the place and manner of articulation. This is very important information. And a lot of Japanese learners who spend their early years in Japanese education, many teachers do not teach pronunciation in their English classes. So probably if you teach pronunciation, it's their first time to learn pronunciation specifically. Okay, so you might want to give explicit instruction, and it'll help. Okay, so please explain the place and manner of articulation, how to pronounce each segmentals, how to pronounce L, how to pronounce R. And when you do that, please use visuals to show how to pronounce the target segmentals. There are a lot of videos available on YouTube. You can show that, and you can, using video is helpful because they can actually show the inside the mouth too. There's an illustration that moving up, and it's better than the teachers demonstrating in front of the class. So I recommend that some videos, the Rachel's English, especially I like that because the visual materials in the video is very helpful. And of course, you want to give ample practice, spend plenty of time in class for practice, and give homework too. Japanese people do not particularly like getting homework from teachers, but if they motivated. They do their own homework, so please give them homework, and constant practice help them develop their pronunciation. So please give them. And feedback is also important, which is crucial in development of pronunciation. So please give feedback. And when you give feedback, please focus on the areas on the target segmentals. For example, if you're teaching LNR, please just give feedback on LNR only. If you give feedback on other aspects of the language, it's confusing and the students don't get it much. So please focus on the ones they are learning now. And when students are engaged in communication, you don't want to break down the communication there. Just keep the conversation go, right? So can you point out their errors silently? And a good one suggests a way like giving a sign, like I use red pen actually. I use red pen. Can you see me? So I just point out with the red pen, that means the pronunciation error. So this is the error. So the students notice that something is wrong with their pronunciation when I give this sign. So please do decide some kind of a common way to show that you are giving feedback on their pronunciation. But still, it can help. But one thing that students still struggle is perception, right? They need to be able to hear the difference between L and R, for example. All right. And then what's being found effective is a high variability phonetic training, HVPT. The students have to familiarize themselves with the pronunciation by different speakers. When teachers demonstrate, there's only one sample. So when you go outside of the classroom and see other native speakers on the street, and then they hear the different sounds. Okay, so I would recommend using English accent coach, Ron Thompson's website, or Youglish. Those two websites list pronunciation pronounced by a different speaker. So it could help them be exposed to the pronunciation spoken by the different speakers. So you can use those English accent coach or Youglish to help them practice with the high variability phonetic training. Okay, but still they cannot hear. So as I teach, for example, LNR, this is right and this is light. And can you hear the difference? They nod their heads, but I don't think they know it. They can't hear the difference because I'm using English words. So I'm putting those target sounds, L and R, with other unfamiliar sounds, means English words. English words are foreign language for them, second language for them. So those words are not familiar. So I recommend, what I recommend here is use the English sounds in Japanese. And you don't have to know Japanese words, but just simply remember those. La, ri, ru, re, ro in Japanese. La, ri, ru, re, ro is a kind of alphabet list, Japanese hiragana list or katakana list. And taking from that, there are 50 of them, but you can just take 5 of them because we are talking about la, ri, ru, re, ro now. So when you teach L and R, use this la, ri, ru, re, ro to demonstrate English R, ra, ri, ru, re, ro, or la, li, lu, le, lo. Sorry I'm losing my voice now. So ra, ri, ru, re, ro using English R instead of Japanese la, ri, ru, re, ro, or la, li, lu, le, lo instead of Japanese la, ri, ru, re, ro. And when they compare, the Japanese learners instantly get the different sounds. I mean, they can hear the difference. So they feel it's weird. It's very strange to strange sounding radiru. And when you say arigato in Japanese, but in using R sounds, arigato, or L sounds, arigato, it sounds different to them. And kochira can be kochira or kochira. Okay, so you can use Japanese words to replace L and R, replace with English L and R, so that the students can actually hear the difference, and then they know those are the different sounds, and they start to realize that they are doing it wrong. Okay, so this moment is necessary. when you teach vowels, you can actually do the same kind of things too. E, que, se, te, ne versus a, que, se, te, ne. It's a very important distinction between Japanese just a long a and a different kind of a sounds. For example, baste versus baste. It's a bus stop in Japanese, or tape or tape. So those distinctions are difficult for Japanese learners. So please remember these simple Japanese, or you can look it up. If you need help, and I can give you a kind of example words so that you can demonstrate it. Okay, so it's helping them to perceive the different sounds. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one, awkward rhythm. Japanese people speak English with awkward rhythm. It's more like a constant rhythm. Then we have to know the two challenges. One is difference in syllable structure or moral structure, and a syllable time language versus moral time language. So when you look at the syllable structure, English has a variety of syllable structure. Simplest one is vowel only I. Or the more complex one, I think the most complex one is a CCCV, consonant, vowel, consonant sequence. Let's see, within one syllable, it's surprisingly long syllable, right? Strength has 8 sounds in it, 8 segmentals in it. My Japanese syllable structure or mora structure is mora is a unit in Japanese. We don't call it syllable, so we call it mora. But a mora structure is vowel only, or CV sequence, or consonant only. But I would say 98% of the syllables of mora in Japanese would be CV sequence. So when you say kurisumasu, it's more like Japanese. Right. Japanese people say Christmas and Christmas in this way. Kurisu. So everything is CV sequence. So it looks like a Christmas. Christmas is Japanese way. So for them, because it's the standard, CV sequence is standard. So suddenly when they have a Christmas, oh no, there is no CV sequence. When you look at the spelling doesn't have enough vowels. So they rely on spelling. They know when they say Christmas in Japanese, they can automatically transfer into an alphabet, Roman letters in this way, Christmas. So they know U is here, I is here, U is here, A is here, and U is here. So they can automatically add those vowels. But when you see their English spelling, there is not enough vowels to put. So they can't do the CV sequence anymore. It's very confusing for them. So they go confused. But English syllable structure is like this: CCVC plus, this is one syllable, and CVC sequence. So they have to know this. Students have to learn those sequence to see the difference between English and Japanese. It's very important distinction. And so how do we present this? So we need to have explicit instruction on syllable structure too. Analyze and compare them between Japanese and English. And whatever the English words you introduce, and Japanese learners can use in katakana English to pronounce that. I'm pretty sure that all Japanese can do that. For example, the structure is a kind of complicated syllable structure, but the Japanese people say sutorakucha. It's very easy for them to demonstrate in the Japanese way of pronunciation. And please use the visuals to count the number of syllables. For example, structure in the two syllables. So they're just two dots to demonstrate there are two syllables there. And you want them to count. You want your students to count the syllables. It's very important for the future pronunciation learning too. So just keep counting. And they need ample practice. From my experience, I've been teaching counting syllables in my English class, and they spend about a month. We meet twice a week, and within a month or so, they start getting it. Okay. Before that, I did not give an explicit instruction on how to count syllables, but when you teach how to count syllables using a dot and some examples, that they start getting it within a month or so. So please, it's worth doing that. So every time you introduce new words in your class, and please practice counting the new words and assign homework too, and just have them find some words in a different word and different lengths, so that they can have 2-syllable words or 3-syllable words or 1-syllable words. And check. You have to check, and probably students are not good enough to check each other's syllable count. So please, teachers, it's a teacher's job to check if their syllable counts are correct or not. And stress time versus moral time. This is more complicated. As you may know, English is a stress time language, and Japanese is a moral time language. So here's a Japanese sentence, and you don't have to know, you don't have to understand. 本当のことが言いたかった。本当のことが言いたかった。So it sounds like da, 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 da. Right. This means I want to tell the truth. And when Japanese pronounce this English sentence, I want to tell the truth, I want to I can't do that. I want to tell you the truth. It's so hard. Sorry. So they have extra rhythm. That's how they perceive English sentence. Okay. But English is a stress time, so they want to focus on the content words. You have to tell them the content words stressed and other function words are unstressed. I wanted to tell you the truth. So the rhythm is like this. I wanted to tell you the truth. So you can see the difference and the strong and weak syllables. So once they are able to divide the syllables, they can know which one is strong and which one is weak. And you need to give explicit instruction again and visually show the stressed and answer syllables like a big circle or small circle and explain basic rule. It's just simply content versus function words is fine. And the students get it because the grammatical knowledge is good enough to understand the content and function words. And they need ample practice, and then they have to be able to identify the stressed, unstressed syllable and by listening and assign homework for speaking too, and maybe present in class. And check rhythms are acceptable or not. That's a teacher's job. But here, when you do the rhythm, you can do the peer feedback. Please implement peer feedback because students can actually do the peer feedback effectively for this rhythm thing. Okay, but some students struggle with stress, expressing stress itself, right? The first problem is the schwa. They don't know how to reduce unstressed syllable. So unstressed syllables are often reduced, and Japanese people don't get that because they are so keen to pronounce each syllable too strong, actually. That's why their rhythm is constant, very constant rhythm. So having listened to audio or something to identify the unstressed syllable and identify how many schwas appear in the sentence and practice pronouncing the reduced schwa. You can demonstrate comparing effect and effect. Actually, schwa sound is the same, although the spelling are different. E and R are different, right? And there is a very famous sentence practice using mice eat cheese. The mice eat the cheese. The mice have eaten the cheese. So you add a reduced syllable to the sentence so that you have a longer, when you count the syllables, you have a longer sentence, but actually the rhythm is the same. If you Google mice eat cheese or English rhythm, then probably you can find a similar sentence for practice. Just present it in the schwa sounds and how to reduce that sound. Probably the students can get it. And also in the three aspects, we have to teach three aspects more. Japanese have a slight distinction in terms of the loudness and pitch and length, but their differences are small, very subtle differences. So you have to teach them to pronounce louder, higher, and longer for the stressed vowel, and the shorter and lower and less louder for the unreduced syllables. The last element is the machine-like intonation. So why do Japanese speak English like a machine? So they have difficulties with speaking English fluently. That's the first one. And the challenge is in expressing pitch differences. The fluency. Japanese education is responsible for their lack of fluency in English. And difference in syntax and lack of practice, of course. Probably you know English education in Japan focuses on examination. It's exam-based education still. Junior high school, they have to take the test to get into high school, and high school students have to take the examination to get into university. So they basically prepare for those examinations. Very difficult and knowledge-based and reading-based examination. So they prepare for that. So their exposure to spoken English is so limited within a classroom and outside the classroom too. And many Japanese teachers still using grammar translation in their teaching. It's nothing bad because the students' needs are, passing to pass the examination. So the grammar translation is effective in that sense, and the speaking component is neglected because it's not in examination base. So lack of fluency in speaking among Japanese learners is actually because of the education. So we understand that. And the difference in syntax too, English and SVO word order is quite different from Japanese SOV, right? So Japanese people think banana spot in their mind, and they try to construct and they reshuffle their word order into Japanese about bananas. So this extra process actually slows down the speech, so they lack of fluency. So they can't use fluent rhythm and lack of practice. Teacher-centered a tradition because in English class also, the students just listen to teachers and they assume they learn something, but they are not. They are not ready to produce the sounds yet. And a transfer appropriate processing is which is important theory. So they are practicing solving problems for examination. So they are good at filling in the blanks or matching word definition or translating into Japanese, but the speaking is not because they never practice speaking for examination. Okay, so explicit instruction. I recommend thought groups. Please introduce thought groups so that they know how to put words together to pronounce. That includes fluency. And this is important. They understand that transfer appropriate processing, what they did is an exam orientation, a exam-based practice. So they are good at solving exam, but they have not practiced speaking, so they need to practice. And the practice identifying thought groups and recording speaking and check if their thought groups are appropriate or not. And self-evaluation can be done here because the students have enough grammatical knowledge. And here is a sample thought group teaching. So divide the sentence into meaningful chunks and stress most important content word in each thought group and stress the syllable of the content words. This is just one sample. If you don't have an umbrella with you, you're most likely to get wet on the way because the focus says it's raining this afternoon. So this way, within thought group, they have to produce fluently, non-stop. So just have them practice using, pronouncing smoothly with the stressed syllable highlighted. Umbrella with you, an umbrella with you, an umbrella with you, so that they can practice within the thought groups. To increase their fluency within thought groups, which is important. And the final challenge is in expressing pitch difference. Japanese is a pitch accent language and English is a stressed accent language. Maybe not familiar with, let me explain. Japanese words, ame and ame. We distinguish those two words, those two different words actually, candy or rain. The candy is ame, and ame is rain. We distinguish those words by the pitch difference only. So there's no difference between in strength or length. Only the difference is the pitch. Ame is a low high or high low ame. In English, you have a similar distinction, but you have a longer and louder pro and a smaller and a weaker and eject and short, right? So project versus project. So you have a length difference, and so length is different, and also loudness is different, and also pitch is different too, high, low distinction. So you are using 3 elements to distinguish. So please exaggerate the 3 aspects, and it's not enough. And what's commonly happening among Japanese learners is the Japanese learners think they are distinguishing those 3, but they are not actually, because they have more sensitive ears in terms of the pitch difference and the strength and the length too. Because the subtle difference makes a difference in Japanese language. So they cannot express those enough. So please exaggerate. And I recommend you using to use body movement. You exaggerate using your body and have them move their bodies too. And the hands are fine, or they can stand up to express their stressed syllable. And basic rule and for intonation, did you go to school today? So it started with the second neutral. Did you go to school today? At the end, you have to have a raising tone, right? And the statement and double H questions go down. So where did you learn English? I learned it in California. Okay, so you want to demonstrate that, and you want to draw a line. I can't draw a line right here, but you should draw a line. And please always associate the sounds. They have to hear the sounds too, of course. And you can use your model, of course, and also any recordings, any intelligible model. It doesn't have to be native speakers. And the visual materials show rather than explain, and drawing intonation control like this is very important. And the videos helpful, models and the diagrams are helpful. And this is important kinesthetic reinforcement. The whole body or hand, using hands is very effective. And use tools like a rubber band. I use those hairbands to demonstrate the stress on stress. I have to quickly run to the end. This is what I can offer. So thank you for listening.
Well, first of all, let us give you a hand for giving us this wonderful presentation. You covered a lot of territory in terms of both segmentals and suprasegmentals. And you're doing this on such an early time for you in Tokyo. And you did it despite suffering from having a cold. So I applaud you for getting through all of this, and thank you very much. Maybe you're about to make sure you get a drink of water, soothe your throat a little bit before taking questions. Then that would be great for a couple more minutes.
Thank you.
So one of the questions is about doubling the E sound. Is there an EE or something similar like that in Japanese?
Oh, yes. EE sounds. Let's go back to iitaka. It can be pronounced as a one long molar too. Iitakatta. It means to say.
Are those separate phonemes? I mean, is it a double phoneme? Are they different words, or do they belong to different words?
No, they belong to the same words, but just a long, it's a prolonged E.
It's a prolonged E.
Yeah.
And
so
does
when
that
you
occur
say
only in certain words or certain phonological contexts?
the original words is you. U is the original words, but when you change the form, it's iimasu, iitai, i.
Oh. Well,
So it's changed the form, so it's
changing
separate
of a form.
but yeah.
And so when you're hearing it in slow speech, you can hear E, but of course when you put it in rapid speech, you might not notice it.
Right. It's not obvious, yeah.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Nat?
Yeah, I was just trying to understand if it has to do something with stress in the English understanding of stress, and it sounds like it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Something to do with stress too, because we don't have a stress patterns here.
Right. So you would say there is no such concept at all in Japanese. There is nothing.
We do when we emphasize some important message. We do actually emphasize, but the difference is subtle.
Right.
So
and this is contrastive stress you're talking about, not neutral stress. So routinely, if there is nothing to extra emphasize, like, no, it was him and not her, right? So I'm not talking about that type of context. If it was just neutral.
Neutral, yes. It's
routinely
a neutral.
Emphasize one word, something that would roughly correspond to nuclear stress in English, or would you not? Probably not, right?
No, probably not. Yeah.
Along the lines of that one, is it anything like Hawaii? I mean, where in the Hawaiian language there is a glottal stop between e. Is there a glottal stop ever?
Kawaii. No.
Because I think Japanese has glottal stops.
Kawaii.
No, sorry. I'm not thinking of kawaii. I'm not thinking of the Japanese kawaii cute. Not that. I'm thinking, I
In
just came
English,
back from Hawaii, the state of the United States, Hawaii,
Okay.
Hawaii in Hawaiian.
Katsuya, I have something to add that I found. I've been studying Japanese myself, and in katakana, when you need to double a vowel, you put a hyphen-like line. And what I found is when I'm teaching my Japanese students, because the stressed vowel in a content word, is longer, I teach them to visually put that little line, and they get it immediately, and that's exactly the right length. I'm going to send you, Katsuya, a couple gimmicks that I have developed.
Thank
and
you.
A really good one for R, since I started studying Japanese. And once you get them and look at them and agree, perhaps you can add them to your PowerPoint.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I agree with using bar to express, for example,
because I've explained it upside down millions of times, and they don't get it. But instantly, when they see that, and it happens to be exactly the right length, and when I teach it to them, wow, does their pronunciation ever change?
Yeah, that's how we prolong the vowel. Only in katakana. Yes, thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. Once again, thank you so much. Let's all give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
A wonderful presentation that's important to so many of us who have or have had or will have students with Japanese language background. So thank you very, very much. Warm regards from California, from the California TESOL Teachers of Pronunciation.